Humans are so vicious and warlike that the mere mention of their savage ways left a lecture hall of Chalnoth alien students in stunned silence after a particularly graphic history lesson. Kyle Adams, the only human in the prestigious Chalnoth Galactic Academy lecture hall, sat rigid in his chair, barely controlling his temper. The Sci-Father's presentation on humanity had started out academic enough, covering humanity's technological prowess and scientific achievements, but it quickly took a dark turn. The holographic projector flashed clips of humans clubbing each other with rocks, cavemen tearing into a raw animal carcass, medieval knights hacking each other to bits, and modern soldiers gunning down scores of enemies. One scene even showed a human soldier snap an alien's neck with his bare hands. "As you can see, humans solve their problems with violence," Sci-Father said. His long neck swayed as he gestured to the hologram of a human city consumed by riots, cars burning and humans attacking each other in the streets. "Their nations war constantly. Genocide is common." The Chalnoth students glanced nervously at Kyle. They murmured to each other in their native clicking language. Kyle's jaw clenched. He knew the Sci-Father was mostly right. Human history was bloody. But the lecture made humanity seem like uncontrollable savages. These naive aliens had no clue about the context behind the conflicts. "Intercepted communications reveal a human faction now plans to seize our territory," Sci-Father said gravely. "We Chalnoth, a peaceful species, now face human invasion." The students' murmurs grew to a panicked commotion. They clicked and waved their fragile clawed hands in fear. Kyle suddenly stood. "You think you know us, but you have no idea what we're capable of," he said, his voice low and cold. "You've seen our past, but not our future. Threaten humanity, and you'll learn how savage we can really be." Sci-Father paced in his office, his claws clicking on the polished floor. The human's ominous warning echoed in his mind. He pulled up Kyle's file on his computer, determined to uncover the truth about this mysterious student. As he dug deeper, Sci-Father's eyes widened. Kyle was no mere student. He was a highly trained soldier from an elite human special forces unit called the Ghosts. Classified records revealed that the Ghosts had conducted numerous covert operations against alien races, including assassinations and sabotage. Sci-Father rushed to the Chalnoth High Council chambers. "We have gravely underestimated the human threat," he said, his voice shaking. "Kyle Adams is a member of a deadly special forces unit. We must arrest him immediately." The council ordered Chalnoth security forces to storm Kyle's dormitory, but when they burst through the door, the room was empty. Kyle had vanished without a trace. As the search for Kyle intensified, a series of explosions rocked key Chalnoth military installations. Security footage showed a lone figure infiltrating the heavily guarded facilities moments before they were destroyed. The Chalnoth quickly realized that Kyle was behind the attacks. What they didn't know was that Kyle had been secretly gathering intelligence on Chalnoth technology and tactics for months, exploiting weaknesses the Chalnoth themselves were unaware of. With each successful strike, Kyle sent a clear message: the humans were not to be underestimated. Panic spread among the Chalnoth populace as the attacks continued. The High Council was in crisis mode when they received a transmission from Kyle. "Abandon your plans to expand into human territory," Kyle said, his voice cold and harsh, "or face the full might of the human military." The council members looked at each other in disbelief. They had gravely miscalculated the human threat. Now they faced an impossible choice: acquiesce to Kyle's demands or risk all-out war with an enemy they no longer understood. The Chalnoth High Council, realizing their mistake in underestimating the human threat, decided to take desperate measures. In a covert operation, they ordered the abduction of several human civilians from a nearby trade outpost. Among the captives was Kyle's younger brother, Jacob Adams, a brilliant xenobiologist who had been studying the unique flora and fauna of the outpost. The Chalnoth believed that by holding these hostages, they could force Kyle to surrender and put an end to his devastating attacks. However, they had gravely miscalculated the depths of human loyalty and resolve. When word of his brother's capture reached Kyle, his fury knew no bounds. He immediately contacted the human military, urging them to send reinforcements to rescue the hostages and defend against the Chalnoth threat. The human fleet, equipped with advanced weaponry and cloaking technology, arrived in Chalnoth space undetected. As the Chalnoth prepared to negotiate with Kyle using the hostages as bargaining chips, the human fleet launched a surprise attack on the Chalnoth capital city. The sky lit up with explosions as human fighters rained down destruction on key government buildings and military bases. The Chalnoth defenses, caught off guard by the sudden assault, crumbled under the onslaught. Amidst the chaos, Kyle led a daring ground assault on the fortified compound where the hostages were being held. He fought his way through hordes of Chalnoth guards, his skills as a ghost operative put to the ultimate test. Gunfire echoed through the corridors as Kyle and his team of elite soldiers battled their way deeper into the compound. The Chalnoth guards, despite their superior numbers, were no match for the highly trained human warriors. Just as Kyle reached the cell where Jacob and the other hostages were being kept, a massive Chalnoth warship descended from the sky, its weapons trained on the compound. The warship's commander demanded that Kyle surrender, threatening to obliterate the compound and everyone inside. Kyle, his eyes locked on his brothers, knew that surrender was not an option. With a final nod to Jacob, Kyle activated a hidden explosive device he had planted in the compound's foundations. In the aftermath of the explosion, Kyle emerged from the rubble carrying Jacob in his arms. The human fleet, having neutralized the Chalnoth defenses, began landing troops to secure the capital city. The Chalnoth, their military crippled and their leadership in disarray, had no choice but to surrender unconditionally to the human forces. Kyle, hailed as a hero by his fellow humans, knew that this was only the beginning of a long and bitter struggle against the alien races that sought to dominate and destroy humanity. As the dust settled over the smoldering ruins of the Chalnoth capital, Kyle stood on the bridge of the human flagship, his eyes fixed on the stars. The victory over the Chalnoth was a turning point in the war, but he knew the fight was far from over. A voice crackled over the comm. "Lieutenant Adams, you're needed back on Earth. Urgent orders from High Command." Kyle's brow furrowed as he made his way to the hangar bay. The journey back to Earth was a blur, his mind consumed with thoughts of the battles to come. As he stepped off the transport, he was greeted by a pair of heavily armed soldiers. "Lieutenant Adams, come with us," one of them said, his face an impassive mask. They led him through a maze of corridors, deep into the heart of a secret underground bunker. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the murmur of voices. Finally, they reached a large, dimly lit room. A man stood at the far end, his back turned to Kyle. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with close-cropped grey hair. "Lieutenant Adams," the man said, turning to face him. "I'm Colonel Marcus Graves. We have a lot to discuss." Graves gestured to a chair. "Have a seat, son. What I'm about to tell you is highly classified." As Kyle sat down, Graves activated a holographic display. Images of alien ships and strange inhuman creatures flickered in the air. "The Chalnoth were just the beginning," Graves said, his voice grave. "They're part of something much bigger, a group of alien races known as the Galactic Dominion." Kyle leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "The Dominion? I've never heard of them." Graves nodded. "Few have. They've been manipulating humanity from the shadows for centuries, orchestrating conflicts, stifling our progress, keeping us weak and divided." "This is the Nexus," Graves said, "the heart of the Dominion's operations and the key to their power." Kyle studied the image, his mind racing. "What's the plan, sir?" He handed Kyle a datapad. "We need a team of elite operatives, ghosts like yourself, each with their own unique skills and knowledge of alien tech." Kyle scrolled through the files, his eyes widening as he read the dossiers of his potential teammates. "I'll need time to train them, sir. Prepare for the mission." Graves nodded. "You'll have it, but don't take too long. The Dominion won't wait forever." As Kyle left the bunker, his mind was already racing with plans and strategies. He knew the risks, the dangers that lay ahead. but he also knew what was at stake. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and he would do whatever it took to ensure its survival. The captured Dominion ship drifted through the void, its hull scarred and pitted from the battle that had brought it under human control. Inside, Kyle and his team of ghosts prepared for their most daring mission yet. "Listen up," Kyle said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We're splitting into 2 teams. Jace, you'll lead the sabotage unit. Your objective is to infiltrate the control center and upload the virus. The rest of you are with me. We're going after the Overseer." The ghosts nodded, their faces grim with determination. They knew the risks, but they also knew what was at stake. As the ship approached the Nexus, Kyle felt a sense of unease wash over him. The station loomed before them, a massive construct of gleaming metal and pulsing lights. It was the heart of the Dominion's power and the key to their downfall. The ship shuddered as it passed through the Nexus's energy shields, the Dominion's advanced technology momentarily fooled by the vessel's stolen codes. But Kyle knew their deception wouldn't last long. "Move out," he ordered, and the ghost sprang into action. Kyle's team moved swiftly through the corridors of the Nexus, their weapons at the ready. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the crackle of energy, the station's systems pulsing with malevolent life. Suddenly, a squad of Dominion guards rounded the corner, their weapons blazing. The ghosts dove for cover, returning fire with deadly precision. The guards fell one by one, their blood splattering the walls. But more guards were coming, alerted by the sound of gunfire. Kyle and his team pushed forward, their augmented strength and speed allowing them to overpower their enemies in brutal close-quarters combat. In the control center, Jace and his team worked furiously to upload the virus. Sweat poured down their faces as they typed commands into the Dominion's alien computer systems, their minds racing to stay one step ahead of the station's defenses. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the control center. The Dominion technicians had discovered their intrusion. Blast doors slammed shut, trapping Jace and his team inside. "Keep working," Jace shouted over the din of gunfire as Dominion guards stormed the control center. The ghosts fought with everything they had, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. But as the smoke cleared, Kyle's eyes widened in shock. The figure on the throne was no stranger, but a face from his past. Sci-Fi, the Chalnoth historian who had first shown him the savagery of humanity, smiled cruelly at him. "Well done, Kyle," Sci-Fi said, his voice dripping with malice. "You've come far, but not far enough." Kyle's mind reeled as he processed the truth. Sci-Fi was no Chalnoth, but a high-ranking member of the Dominion. The entire lecture, the entire war, had been a ploy to lure the human resistance into a trap. Sci-Fi's smile widened as he pressed a button on the arm of his throne. A hissing sound filled the chamber as toxic gas began to pour from hidden vents in the walls. Kyle and his team staggered, their lungs burning as they inhaled the poisonous fumes. Their vision blurred, their muscles weakening with every passing second. But even as they choked and gasped for air, Kyle's mind raced. The Overseer wasn't here. The Nexus was a trap, and if they didn't find a way out soon, the entire human resistance would be walking into a slaughter. Kyle's vision blurred, his throat raw from the toxic fumes. With shaking hands, he activated his suit's emergency oxygen supply. Precious air hissed into his helmet. He turned to his team, their faces contorted in pain. Kyle pulled them close, sharing his oxygen. "We have to get out of here," he rasped. They staggered to the door, lungs searing. Kyle raised his plasma rifle and blasted the door controls. The heavy metal buckled and warped under the onslaught. With a final kick, the door gave way. They stumbled into the corridor, gasping for air. But their relief was short-lived. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. A squad of Dominion reinforcements rounded the corner, led by a hulking figure. It was a massive alien, over 8 feet tall. Its body was a nightmarish fusion of flesh and metal, cybernetic enhancements glinting in the dim light. In its hands, it carried a devastating plasma cannon, the barrel glowing with deadly energy. "The Enforcer," Kyle growled. The Enforcer raised its cannon and fired. A searing bolt of plasma slammed into the wall beside Kyle's head, melting the metal. Kyle and his team dove for cover, returning fire. Kyle's team was pushed back, their cover disintegrating under the Enforcer's onslaught. They were running out of options. It was Jace. He and the sabotage team burst into the corridor, weapons blazing. They had managed to escape the control center. Jace pulled out a handheld device, his fingers flying over the keys. "I'm going to try to hack its shield," he shouted over the din of battle. The Enforcer turned, leveling its cannon at Jace. Kyle leaped forward, tackling Jace out of the way, just as a plasma bolt seared the air where he had been standing. "Hurry," Kyle urged, laying down covering fire. Jace typed furiously, sweat dripping down his face. The Enforcer's shield flickered, then died. "Now!" Jace yelled. Kyle surged to his feet, charging the Enforcer. He ducked under a swipe of its massive fist and jammed his rifle into a gap in its armor. He pulled the trigger, again and again, until the rifle overheated in his hands. The Enforcer staggered, sparks flying from its ruined cybernetics. Then, with a final shudder, it collapsed. "The self-destruct sequence," Jace said, eyes wide. "We need to get to the hangar bay now." They raced through the corridors, fighting past scattered groups of Dominion soldiers. The station was coming apart around them, explosions rocking the halls. As they neared the hangar bay, Kyle's comm crackled to life. It was Colonel Graves. "Kyle, the Dominion counterattack has been devastating," Graves said, his voice strained. "The Resistance is in full retreat. The Dominion is closing in on Earth. You have to stop them." Kyle's blood ran cold. The hangar bay doors loomed ahead, their stolen ship waiting. "We have to get to the Overseer," Kyle said grimly. "It's the only way to end this." Jace nodded, already pulling up star charts on his wrist computer. "I've extracted the Overseer's location from the Nexus databases. A Dominion stronghold deep in uncharted space." As they boarded the ship, Kyle's comm pinged again. A message from Graves. He opened it, then froze, his heart sinking. "What is it?" Jace asked, seeing Kyle's expression. "It's Graves," Kyle said, his voice hollow. "He's been captured. The Dominion is holding him in the stronghold." Kyle's hands clenched into fists. The Overseer had his mentor, the man who had given him purpose, a chance to fight back against the Dominion. As the ship lifted off, Kyle stared out the viewport at the exploding station. The Nexus, the heart of the Dominion's power, was gone. But the fight was far from over. Out there somewhere was the Overseer, and Kyle would find him. He would save Graves, and he would end this war. The hijacked Dominion ship streaked through the void, its engines straining as Kyle pushed them to their limits. Time was running out. Colonel Graves was in the hands of the enemy, and the Overseer's stronghold loomed ahead, a dark fortress bristling with weapons. Suddenly the comm crackled to life. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Outpost Zeta. We are under heavy Dominion assault, requesting immediate assistance." Kyle hesitated, his grip tightening on the controls. Every second counted in the race to save Graves, but he couldn't ignore a plea for help. "Jace, how bad is it?" Kyle asked. Jace's fingers flew over the console, bringing up a tactical display. "It's a massacre. Outpost defenses are failing. Dominion ground forces are overrunning their position." Kyle made the call. "We're going in. Prep for atmospheric entry." The ship shuddered as it knifed into the outpost's atmosphere, heat shields glowing. As they approached the battle-scarred settlement, the full scale of the conflict became clear. Dominion tanks and infantry swarmed the outpost's perimeter, energy weapons flashing. The outpost's defenders, a ragtag mix of colonists and security personnel, were fighting tooth and nail, but they were badly outgunned. "Bring us in low and fast," Kyle ordered. "We'll hit their rear flank." The Dominion ship screamed over the battlefield, its weapons spitting plasma. Dominion soldiers scattered as their own ship rained fire on their positions. The ship touched down in a blast of retro-thrusters. Kyle and his ghosts leapt out, weapons blazing. They carved a path through the Dominion lines, augmented reflexes and aim, making each shot count. As they fought their way toward the outpost's gate, a tall, grizzled man in battle-scarred armor waved them over. "I'm Commander Reyes," he shouted over the din of battle. "Damn glad to see you, ghosts." Kyle and Reyes fought side by side, a lethal duo. Reyes was a veteran, his every move precise and deadly. As they took cover behind a shattered wall, Reyes turned to Kyle. "I knew Graves back in the day," Reyes said, slamming a fresh magazine into his rifle. "Tough bastard. If anyone can survive the Dominion, it's him." Kyle nodded, popping up to drop a Dominion trooper with a headshot. "We'll get him back, but these colonists can't hold out much longer." Reyes' face hardened. "I might have a way to even the odds. Been working on a little surprise for the Dominion." He led Kyle into the outpost's central compound. In a reinforced bunker, a strange device sat on a workbench half-assembled. "EMP weapon," Reyes explained. "Fry every piece of Dominion tech in a 20-click radius, but the damn thing's not finished." Kyle examined the device, his ghost training kicking in. "I can help, but we'll need time." Reyes nodded. "I'll buy you that time." He turned to the other ghosts. "You lot on me. We'll hold the perimeter." As Reyes and the ghosts rushed back into the fray, Kyle hunched over the EMP device, his hands a blur as he worked. Outside, the battle raged. Reyes and the ghosts held the line, a wall of steel and fury, but the Dominion forces were relentless, waves of soldiers and drones pressing the attack. In the bunker, Kyle and the device were locked in their own desperate race. Suddenly the bunker door burst open. A squad of Dominion assassins, blades glinting, rushed inside. Kyle leapt to his feet, drawing his combat knife. He and Reyes fought back to back, a whirlwind of slashing steel. An assassin's blade slipped past Reyes's guard, stabbing toward his chest. But Kyle was there, throwing himself in the path of the blow. The knife sank into his flesh, a searing agony. Kyle fell, blood pooling beneath him. Through dimming vision, he saw Reyes grab the EMP device, slam the final component into place. Reyes hit the activation switch. A pulse of blue light erupted from the device, washing over the battlefield. In an instant, the Dominion's weapons fell silent, their ships and tanks grinding to a halt. The colonists surged forward, overwhelming the powerless invaders. Reyes knelt at Kyle's side, pressing a medpack to his wound, but Kyle knew it was too late. As Kyle's eyes closed for the last time, Reyes bowed his head. Then he stood, face set with grim purpose. He gathered the surviving ghosts. "We've got a job to do," he said, his voice hard as steel. "For Kyle, for everyone the Dominion's hurt." He strode to the waiting ship, the ghosts falling in behind him. The ship settled onto the barren rock with a hiss of hydraulics. Reyes and the remaining ghosts emerged, weapons at the ready, their eyes hard with determination and grief. Before them loomed the Overseer's stronghold, a sprawling fortress, bristling with defenses and crawling with Dominion soldiers. Reyes gathered the team close. "This is it, our chance to end this war and avenge our fallen brothers." His gaze lingered on each face, seeing the same fire that burned in his own heart. "We do this for Kyle, for Graves, for every human who suffered under the Dominion's boot." The ghosts nodded, checking their weapons and gear. Jace hefted the EMP device, its weight a promise of retribution. Reyes laid out the plan. "We split into two teams. Alpha team hits the main gates hard, drawing their fire. Beta team infiltrates through the tunnels Jace mapped out. We converge on the central chamber, free Graves, and take down the Overseer." The teams moved out, silent and deadly. Alpha team took position near the main gates, preparing their assault. At Reyes's signal, they opened fire, plasma bolts and grenades ripping into the Dominion defenses. Alarms blared and soldiers scrambled as the stronghold erupted into chaos. Under cover of the distraction, Beta team slipped into the tunnel network. Reyes led the way, his rifle sweeping the darkness. They crept through dank passages, skirting patrols and disarming vicious traps with Jace's careful guidance. Finally, they reached the secret entrance. It opened into a utility corridor, dim and deserted, but as they pushed deeper into the stronghold, a squad of Dominion soldiers emerged from a side passage. Plasma fire filled the corridor as the two groups clashed. Reyes was a force of nature, his rifle spitting death. He moved with fluid grace, dodging enemy fire and dispatching foes with merciless efficiency. The EMP device crackled, shorting out Dominion tech and evening the odds. One by one the soldiers fell until only ghosts and silence remained. The team forged ahead, breaching blast doors and security checkpoints. They finally reached the central chamber, a vast space pulsing with alien machinery, and there, suspended in a glowing containment field, was Colonel Graves. A towering figure emerged from the shadows, flanked by elite guards. The Overseer, his body a nightmare fusion of flesh and metal, fixed his cold gaze on the humans. "You fight bravely," he rumbled, "but your struggle is futile. I have studied your kind, mapped your every weakness. The Dominion's triumph is inevitable." Reyes snarled, rage boiling over. He lunged at the Overseer, blades flashing. The guards surged forward to meet the ghosts, and the chamber dissolved into a whirlwind of steel and plasma fire. As the battle raged, Jace sprinted to the containment unit. His fingers flew over the controls, lines of code scrolling across his visor as he fought to override the system. The Overseer and Reyes dueled, cybernetic enhancements clashing against desperate human fury. The alien warlord was terrifyingly strong, his blows cracking armor and bone, but Reyes fought on, pain fueling his determination. With a final triumphant keystroke, Jace cracked the containment field. It flickered and died, and Colonel Graves dropped to the floor. The tide had turned. With Colonel Graves fighting at their side, Reyes and the ghosts unleashed a furious assault on the Overseer's elite guards. Plasma blasts singed the air as the two forces clashed in brutal close-quarters combat. The ghosts fought with the strength of 10 men, their augmented reflexes and hardened combat skills more than a match for the Dominion's finest. But the Overseer's guard were a formidable foe. For every one that fell, 2 more seemed to take their place. Reyes found himself locked in a deadly dance with a towering alien warrior, his blades flashing as he parried and struck. The alien was fast, too fast. Its cybernetic enhancements allowed it to move with blinding speed. Reyes felt the searing heat of a plasma bolt graze his cheek as he narrowly dodged a blow that would have taken his head off. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the Overseer himself enter the fray. The alien leader was a nightmarish fusion of flesh and metal, his body bristling with advanced weapons tech. He moved with the lethal grace of a predator, his eyes fixed on Colonel Graves. Reyes watched in horror as the Overseer closed in on Graves, his blades flashing. Graves fought with the skill of a seasoned warrior, but he was outmatched by the alien's raw strength and speed. The Overseer knocked Graves to the ground, his blade poised for the killing blow. But Graves was not finished yet. With a roar of defiance, he surged to his feet, tackling the Overseer in a fierce embrace. The two leaders grappled, trading blows that would have shattered concrete. Reyes redoubled his efforts, his blade singing as he cut down the last of the elite guard. "Jace!" he shouted over the din of battle. "The EMP now!" Jace, his face slick with sweat, nodded. His fingers flew over the control panel, hacking through layer after layer of security. With a final triumphant keystroke, he activated the EMP. The device hummed with power, then unleashed a massive shockwave that rippled out through the stronghold. Lights flickered and died, weapon systems sputtered and failed. The Dominion forces, their tech suddenly useless, fell into disarray. Reyes and the ghosts pressed their advantage, gunning down the disoriented aliens with ruthless efficiency. They fought their way to the heart of the chamber, where Graves and the Overseer were still locked in their titanic struggle. Graves was battered and bleeding, but his eyes blazed with an unbreakable will. He wrapped his hands around the Overseer's throat, squeezing with all his strength. The Overseer thrashed and writhed, but Graves held on, his grip as unyielding as iron. With a final sickening crunch, the Overseer's neck snapped. The alien leader crumpled to the ground. His reign of terror ended at last. Around them, the Dominion forces threw down their weapons, surrendering en masse. Reyes looked around at the carnage, hardly daring to believe it was over. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a blow against the heart of the Dominion and lived to tell the tale. Reyes felt a surge of pride as he looked at his battered, blood-soaked team. These were the finest soldiers humanity had to offer, and they had proven their mettle beyond any doubt. But even as they savored their victory, Reyes's thoughts turned to Kyle. The man had sacrificed everything for this mission, had been willing to give his life for the cause. Reyes owed him a debt that could never be repaid. Her voice crackled over the comm, snapping Reyes out of his thoughts. "Sir, we've got a message from the medical facility. It's about Lieutenant Adams." Reyes felt his heart skip a beat. He exchanged a glance with Graves, hardly daring to hope. "Put it through," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion. The voice on the other end was jubilant. "Sir, he's alive. Kyle's alive." "Hear that, you bastards?" he shouted to the surrendering Dominion troops. "We got our boy back. The ghosts look after their own." Reyes turned to his team, a fire burning in his eyes. "All right, ghosts, we've got one more mission. Let's go bring our brother home." As they made their way out of the stronghold, stepping over the bodies of the fallen, Reyes felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The war was far from over, but today they had struck a blow for humanity. Today they had shown the galaxy what the ghosts were made of. And God help any alien bastard that tried to stand in their way. The medbay doors hissed open as Reyes and the ghosts strode in, their faces flush with triumph and relief. They had done it, defeated the Overseer, crippled the Dominion, and saved humanity from enslavement. And they owed it all to one man, Kyle Adams, the hero who had sacrificed everything to make this victory possible. But as they entered Kyle's room, their smiles faded. Kyle lay unmoving on the bed, his body a patchwork of bandages and tubes. The steady beep of the heart monitor was the only sound in the room. The doctor, a weary-looking man with grey hair, shook his head. "He's in a coma. His injuries were extensive. We've done all we can, but—" For hours they sat in silence, keeping vigil over their fallen brother. They shared stories of their battles, remembering Kyle's bravery, his skill, his unwavering dedication to the cause. "Remember that time on Zelos Prime?" Jace said, a ghost of a smile on his lips. "When Kyle took out that Dominion tank with nothing but a frag grenade and a prayer?" The others chuckled, remembering Kyle's wild grin as he had lobbed the grenade, diving for cover just as the tank exploded in a ball of flame. As the days turned into weeks, the human resistance began to rebuild. Colonel Graves, now hailed as a hero, worked tirelessly to unite the scattered human factions, forging alliances and establishing supply lines. But even as the humans celebrated their hard-won victory, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Jace, sifting through the data recovered from the Overseer's stronghold, made a chilling discovery. The Dominion, it seemed, had not been the only enemy lurking in the shadows. Hidden deep within the Overseer's files was evidence of a far more ancient and powerful foe, a race of beings known as the Void Seekers. For centuries, they had manipulated the Dominion from behind the scenes, using them as pawns in their grand scheme to conquer and consume the galaxy. The Void Seekers, Jace learned, were not mere aliens, but something far worse. They were ancient, immortal beings who fed on the life essence of entire worlds, leaving nothing but barren wastelands in their wake. As the horrifying truth sank in, Reyes felt a cold dread settle in his gut. The Dominion had been just the beginning. With Kyle in a coma and the Resistance still reeling from their losses, they were woefully unprepared to face this new threat. In a somber ceremony, the ghosts gathered at Kyle's bedside to say their goodbyes. They left tokens of their shared battles, a battered helmet, a scorched patch, a spent shell casing, reminders of the bond they had forged in the heat of combat. As they left the medbay, Reyes paused at the door, looking back at Kyle's still form. He knew that the road ahead would be long and hard, that the Void Seekers would stop at nothing to achieve their goals. But he also knew that they would fight, as Kyle had fought, with every ounce of strength and courage they possessed. They would honor Kyle's sacrifice and they would protect the future of humanity, no matter the cost. Reyes looked up at the stars, imagining the void seekers out there waiting, plotting, hungering. He clenched his fists, steeling himself for the war to come. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.